but as a formality, I would like to introduce them to you again. So today we have Bante Yoga Vajrahula joining the discussion from Washington, D.C., Virginia. And we have Venerable Trudeau joining the discussion from Florida. Then we have Venerable Ananda Kalabovila joining the discussion from Cambridge, Ontario, Canada. And we have Venerable Shanta Sobana joining the discussion from Los Angeles. And then we have Venerable Bhante Subodha joining the discussion from New York City. And we also have some devotees who joined this discussion here on Zoom platform. And I know there are people who are also watching this program live on Facebook and YouTube. So I have a kind request from all of you. If you please feel free to share this program, this discussion on your social media timeline for the greater benefit of your friends and family members. Today we are going to have a kind of friendly discussion on Christmas because this last bi-weekly discussion happened to be on the Christmas day. And there are millions of people around the world celebrating Christmas. And as Buddhist monks, we also celebrated Christmas in solidarity with our Christian friends around the world. I personally have a great respect for Jesus Christ and what he taught the world. The moral teachings are very important. And the very first book I read, it was the book by the late Venerable, the most Venerable Thich Nhat Hanh, who wrote the book of Living Buddha, Living Christ. And this book actually points out a lot of similarities, great teachings. And I think rather than seeing the differences, and if we can see the similarities of all the faith traditions, all the religious teachings, spirituality, that would bring us closer. But if we get stuck with the differences, then it's going to help us distance from each other. So the whole purpose of today's discussion is to see the similarity, how we look at the other religions, how Buddhist people look at other spiritual traditions, and then if our audience have any questions, feel free to ask, and we can accordingly have the discussion. For me, as a Buddhist monk living in Canada, especially in the most multicultural city in Toronto, I had the great privilege of getting involved with the interfaith dialogues for a long time. And in fact, I'm a member of the Toronto Area Interfaith Council, and also a member of the Ontario Multi-Faith Council, and also a member of Canadian Multi-Faith Federation. And in fact, in 2020, in September, we faith leaders had a special conversation with the Right Honorable Justin Trudeau, the Canadian Prime Minister, about how we, spiritual leaders, doing things for our own communities during the difficult time. And I had the great privilege of listening to many stories. I see the beauty of all these symbols. And
y'all hang out for a second, because I'm going to wait until I contribute. Okay. But it's going to be a really good discussion just with other monastic scholars.
Helps me to see Buddha in the 6th century BCE how Buddha himself paid special visits to the other places of worship, and how he had the friendly conversations, how he exchanged the ideas with other spiritual leaders of the 6th century BCE. And I personally believe if Jesus Christ were to be in the 6th century BCE, during the time of the Buddha, if he were to be the contemporary of the Buddha, I'm pretty sure both of them, Buddha and Jesus Christ, could have had great meetings and exchanged a lot of ideas. And so with these opening remarks, I would like to I don't have a specific questions, by the way. This is just to share our own stories and how we perceive other religious traditions. And I know Bhante Yoga had a lot of experiences of that, and I also have seen Venerable Ananda here in Kitchener-Waterloo region, how you got involved with other faith traditions. Then I also have seen a lot of programs, interfaith programs, undertaken by Venerable Shanta Soban in Los Angeles, and all of you have a lot of experiences. So I would like to begin with Bhante Yoga Vajra Rahula to Yoga Vajra Rahula to Bhante, just feel free to tell us any stories about Jesus Christ or similarities, and how you perceive the Christian teachings and the Buddhist teachings, how these teachings could help us come together and bring peace in the world, and so on and so forth. Bhante Rahula.
Thank you, Bhante, for arranging this talk, even though it's Christmas Eve, and to persevere even for the few of us that are participating. This is an important topic, especially in this day in this era where there's a lot of interreligious fighting, specifically in certain areas which we know about which religion is superior or not, and different beliefs based on that. Now, I grew up here in America, and I went to a Methodist church.
Yeah.
We were taught the basically Christian ideas about, following the 10 Commandments and taking Jesus Christ as the Savior, and things like that, and the principles of being a good human being, and tithing, and practicing generosity and things like that. But there wasn't any meditation instructions. There was no kind of guidance about how to control one's mind, or how to control your greed or aversion, except for just praying maybe to some external being to help change your mind or something.
Yeah.
Or to answer the causes. Why is this suffering occurring to me?
Yeah.
So that was my basic kind of religious upbringing. And then when I went to India, traveled around the world, and got to India and discovered the Dhamma, basically I wanted to learn meditation because I had been taking a lot of drugs and getting into a lot of mischief. Got put in prison in Afghanistan, lucky got out with my life. And so I knew I had to change my mind.
Yeah.
And then I had heard about the meditation course being offered in Kathmandu, Nepal, the Tibetan Lamas. And I had taken a course in the world religions before that, and I had some cursory understanding about the Buddha's teaching, but not really in depth. And when I went through Sarnath on my way up to Nepal, I stopped at Sarnath, and I was trying to remember what I studied about the Buddha's teaching about greed, hatred, and delusion, about how our actions follow us around, and karma and so on. And I was, the practice of meditation, and I hoped that I would be able to learn some meditation. But back in those days, there weren't that many opportunities for it. This was back in 1972. Anyway, I went to this meditation course, and then we were, through the meditation and contemplating and learning about, especially about karma and rebirth, and about how the greed, hatred, and delusion was the source of all of our problems, and being caught in selfish, ego-centered awareness, and especially about the law of karma. This was something kind of new to me, and that we're the architect of our own futures and create our own life through our actions. And it helped me reflect back on my own life and about all the things I did out of greed, hatred, delusion, and the ego that caused suffering for myself and my family and other people. And by looking at the mind and seeing how conditioned the mind was, I just wanted to, delve into meditation more and to free the mind. Now, I wasn't interested in gaining another religion as such, but I was interested in the techniques of meditation and sort of the corresponding philosophy about karma, especially about the karma and how the mind is the forerunner of all conditions, and reading some Dhammapada verses and other things. That's what got me interested in meditation, and I think that's what gets a lot of other Western people interested in coming to the Dhamma teachings, and especially meditation. They're becoming Buddhists to acquire another religion as such. They want to use the methods, follow the Eightfold Path, Sila, Samadhi, and Panya, that we can unravel, disentangle the tangle of karma that we've created ourselves. So, in that respect, now as we, in the Buddha's day, there was basically just the Vedic religions, and there were the theoretical, the heretical views espoused in the Brahmajala Sutta, and so on. But there weren't, the Western kind of religions like Christianity or Islam has not yet started yet. So most of the Buddhist critique on other religions was about their wrong views about the nature of karma and the nature of what happens to the mind after death. Or, there's some creator created the world. Now, coming back to this more modern times, after I came back from India and I then started studying a little bit more about Christianity and my understanding of, the Dhamma teachings, especially, like the verses in the Dhammapada. So many things are very similar to the teachings of Jesus Christ, as most of us, know. And especially like the law of karma. But, back in the 6th century AD, I think the Christians had a convocation, and they removed a lot of the teachings about karma and rebirth from the original Gospels, and teachings of that came from the original Gospels. They removed those teachings that were very similar to the sayings of Jesus Christ, like the Sermons on the Mount. And a lot of those verses that probably most of you have heard about do unto others as you would have them do unto you. That's very similar to the law of karma, right? Mm-hmm. We don't want people to cause us suffering, so we shouldn't cause suffering to others by breaking the precepts and doing all kind of foolish things. And that, our karma follows us. So, those especially were, and the only way we can do that is by changing our mind through the practice of meditation. And so, those early teachings of the Jesus, especially as we find in those early Gospels, are very, we can see them just as, the books by Thich Nhat Hanh, as you mentioned, the Living Christ, Living Buddha, they're very similar. And so Jesus Christ normally is considered a great saint, even within Hinduism and Buddhism. Most Buddhists would probably consider Jesus as a bodhisattva, maybe not having attained full enlightenment as we understand it, but as a bodhisattva, and also those religions grew up in the environment. Now, Jesus lived in that area of Israel, Judea, Samaria, and where life was very difficult. And so he had to teach a kind of a Dhamma that the people could understand. Whereas the Buddha grew up already in India, where the practice of meditation, attaining jhanas, even immaterial jhanas, was already developed. And so he could speak along those lines about meditation, and a lot of people would understand that. But when Jesus, in those areas where different religions came up, especially Islam and in Christianity, I mean, 3/4 of all the people in the world are either Christians or Muslims. And it came from that same area and at the same time. So we have to understand how those prophets of the time taught the Dhamma, and they might have used terms like the Father in heaven, but a lot of that could be kind of symbolic in nature. But it's the way the church and the establishment churches or other even within Buddhism sometimes, there's different sects within Buddhism too that have some different views about, the nature of, the ultimate goal and so on. But anyway, I'm not going to get into all of that. Yeah. But I just wanted to point out that, not everybody is going to have the same views or understandings, but I think in a general sense, that I regard different religions as being like ladders, rungs on a ladder, and a lot of them even, somebody whose mind is totally stuck in the gutter, if they can at least get out of that a little bit by following some, religious principles, even though they might not be exactly in conformity with the Dhamma teachings, that's good. If it helps them to get out of that. But as a person gets out of the deep layers of suffering, they might then become more refined in their thinking, and they might be in a place then to probe a little bit deeper. And then they might see another religion as being, take them to a higher plane, such as so many Christians in this country who become Buddhists, like myself, who sort of converted, you might say, to the Buddhist teachings, or at least the Dhamma teachings, and meditation. That is how they kind of, got started. And so, the debate whether Jesus Christ or others were, fully enlightened and so on, I'm not going to get into that. But what they offered was something to get people started, and then, depending on how that teaching is taught and how people understand it, then, there's different viewpoints, of course, in different religions. That's why there's so many different sects. Even within Christianity and even Muslims have different sects. In Buddhism, we have different sects. And they all have slightly different understandings and meanings. But basically, the goal of freeing the mind from the suffering that's inherent in this conditioned existence, whether it's the belief you're going to be reborn in a heaven for eternity and experience happiness in heaven, or you're going to be reborn in hells. I mean, even in Buddhism, believe in heaven and hells too, except that we have a lot of different ones, not just one or two. And people can, go in and out of them, so to speak. But so the idea of heaven and hell, that means the atonement for your deeds in this life. If you, live unskillfully and break the commandments or precepts, you'll be reborn in hell. Even Buddhism says that too, right? And, or you follow the precepts and practice generosity and so on, you can be reborn in Devalokas. Yeah. And things like that, heavens. Except for they regard those as permanent places, but the Buddhists regard those as stepping stones to eventually transcending samsara altogether. So basically, that's just what I wanted to contribute.
Yeah. Bhante, you go to Rahula. Did you ever have, or were you able to participate in any form of interfaith dialogues or conferences.
Yes.
And what was your take on, like, in such conventions or dialogues, and what is your understanding of such events?
Well, when I lived at the Bhavana Society between about the year 2000 and 2010, or even before that, maybe in 95 to about 2010, we had an interreligious dialogue with the Holy Cross Abbey, which is a monastery of mainly, I think, Cistercian monks or Trappist monks. Mm-hmm. Anyway, and there was about an hour drive from Bhavana Society, and some people organized these interfaith dialogues, and some people from Yogaville, which are, the Hindu tradition, they came up, and we had Bhante Gunaratha and myself, one or two of the other monastics, so we went to these, and we would have very amicable dialogues, and we came to the point that different religions have different goals, but as long as people they're improving their life and they're not doing evil, like the Buddha said, refrain from evil, do what is good, and purify the mind. People can do that through their various practices and prayer and so on. Then, we left it at that. We didn't get into any arguments about ultimate sort of reality and whether there's a creator God or not, or souls, things like that. So we kind of just kept it on that, trying to get an understanding that, we all teach those basic ethical principles and some type of meditation to help the mind get to a higher plane of consciousness.
No, I see, Bhante Rahula, there were days people were of opinion, they were thinking like, oh, my religion is better than others. And now that perspective is changing. Now, how can we promote that? Can you share with us a few more words, like, my religion is not the best religion, but all religions are the same, and these are the teachings that we can commonly practice?
Well, I wouldn't personally go so far as to say all religions are necessarily the same or reach the same place, because it depends on how a person is doing that. Now, even within the the Hindu tradition of idea of Brahma, being born with Brahma, well, that's the Buddha discovered a higher plane even beyond Brahma.
Yeah.
So anyway, but so it's, to me, it's whatever helps a person grow and develop and to abstain from negative actions hurting others, and helping to promote harmony and love, because we all have to live in this world. And there's a saying, different strokes for different folks, right?
Yeah.
So people will be attracted to a certain religious philosophy or way of life depending on the state of their own mind and in its previous conditioning and things like that. So, I don't say, of course, I believe the Buddha's teaching is the highest teaching for learning how to liberate the mind totally from all defilements and suffering. But I'm not going to go around and say that Buddhism is the only way and things like that, because that would create. We can have our own opinions, but we have to communicate with others and try to, maintain a harmony so that allow people to grow. And if people are ready to change their religion at some point, then they'll do that.
Yeah, everything depends on what you're looking for, right? Now we can say it's a spiritual supermarket that we have, and the Buddhism is available, Christianity is available, Islam, Hinduism, Judaism, and First National spirituality, other forms of spiritualities. Everything is available. So now everything depends on what you're looking for. So I think we had the similar concept during the time of the Buddha, and people even were confused one day, like when we Kalama Sutta, where everyone say my tradition is the best. I have found the truth, and because I have practiced more than the previous teacher or the practitioner, and then Buddha happened to put these 10 conditions. Can you a bit elaborate on that teaching? How people can accept certain things?
Well, in the when the Buddha was preaching the Kalama Sutta,
yeah,
it was within that context of all these various ascetics, coming and propounding different viewpoints about karma and so on. And the Buddha basically was talking about, the greed, hatred, and delusion. And he said, what do you think, Kalamas, when you understand that doing these certain things bring you pain and suffering, when these other things bring you happiness, that's the way that you should, follow that, not just believing that somebody was telling it, or whether it's in the scriptures, but from your own practice. Of course, it takes a good deal of practice to be able to understand that. But nowadays, people take this Kalama Sutta to saying, you can believe anything you want, something like that. But that's not really what the Buddha was talking about. He mentioned about specifically greed, hatred, and delusion, and the painful effects that your actions bring from greed, hatred, and delusion. And you can observe that.
Yeah.
When I first heard about karma, and I reflected in my life, all my years back, how many people I hurt through greed, hatred, and delusion. It was a wake-up call. Oh my God,
Yeah.
And it was a shocker because I didn't think about it. People don't think about it. So that's what the Buddha wanted people to understand about how much pain and suffering, clinging in attachment, clinging to views, and these things, whether it brings harm or not. And most people are not prepared to look at that because they're attached to their own viewpoints.
Yes, but Rahul, you said you had to sign out around 7 p.m. because you have a meditation session. There are some people. But before you leave, I'm going to come back to you. Maybe if our friends who are watching on YouTube or Facebook, if you have any questions to ask from Bhante Rahula, please make the comment, write your question, and I will take your question for him. So thank you, Bhante Rahula, for sharing your perspective, and please stay around until 7 p.m. Now we see Bhante Shantasobana from Los Angeles raised his hand. What's in your mind? I know I was very happy to see some of your activities, like pictures, videos of interfaith programs, and so I know you have a lot of experiences. So what's in your mind, Venerable Shantasobana?
Oh, thank you very much, Venerable Sirs. And with the respect to all the Venerable monks, and at the same time, we wish Merry Christmas to all our friends around the world. And actually, when it comes to today with these machines and technology and in this information era, I think now anymore the Buddhism or the Christianity or the Islam or anything is anymore not belong to any school or any religion or any sector. Now it's go beyond the boundaries. So when it comes to this time period, I always mention when we go to our interfaith communities, especially we are doing a lot of work in the Los Angeles with this interfaith solidarity network here. So I always mention them that 2,600 years ago, the Buddha was there, and at the same time, 2,000 years ago, the Jesus was there, and Prophet Muhammad was there, and they have done whatever they according to their best. So this is our time. So what we can do? So even though we have the Tripitaka, or even though we have the Bible, even though we have Quran, it itself not going to give any meaning to anybody. When it comes through our body, what we can manifest out of our bodily, verbally, mentally actions, that's going to give a meaning to that, whatever the history. So when it comes to, especially when it comes to this religions, it is a very sensitive subject. And so then it's, but still, the very bridge that we can bring, build up within each and everyone, respecting. And that's wherever we go, we respect each and everybody personally, and we respect their ideas. And at the same time, everybody look for a space. So we give a space in our heart for them. And so I think as Buddhists, we are the one who can do it better than anybody. The reason is we are not anymore belong to kind of like any kind of like a framework or kind of like a point of view. So in that way, they are so comfortable with us. And most of the time when I do chanting and they like it, and they say, so yeah, everybody like it and they really appreciate it, and everybody always try to end any kind of our solidarity interfaith there's meetings most of time chanting and blessing, and they say, and in their traditions they don't have that kind of things, and it's really touched their heart. So with that, when it comes to this Christmas time period, what we can see, and actually this is a very important time period that, as we all know, because of this machines and technology and this very new life with this all the gadgetics and consumer product, slowly we are kind of like separating from this human connection. So the Christmas is a kind of like a time period, and the bringing this human connection or the togetherness, I think more than any other time today, it is very needed for this human society. And other thing is we say that the Christmas is about Jesus' birthday. And we celebrate the Buddha's birthday as Vesak. So when it comes to that, the very deeper understanding, we all celebrate this human life. So we have to do that. Why? Because when we see this human history, and more than any other time, now we can see we are in danger because of human actions. So it is a very good time period for us to remind and reflect on the value of this humanity. Because if anybody don't understand that, I think any spiritual practice cannot exist that without understanding the value of human beings. And so when it comes to this Christmas time period, as we know, loving kindness, compassion, and at the same time practicing goodwill and generosity, those are very valuable, fundamental human qualities. So even in Buddhism, we encourage always and we practice always, and especially when it comes to this Christianity, there is one of the very valuable thing that Jesus mentioned, that most of the time, because people think about the love, and they always try to, they say, love your neighbor. And they always try to express the love and waiting for the love, expect the love. But deeply, when it comes to what the Jesus told, before you love others, you have to practice how to forgive. Without forgiving, you cannot love. So if you can forgive somebody, that is the greatest love you can give to another person. And at the same time, we know nowadays in the Christmas time period, we share the gift. It has kind of like a material value, but the highest gift that we can give to others, forgive them. So I want to mention that how that the Jesus mentioned it, and he delivered profound message about the connection between forgiveness and being forgiven by God. So it come Gospel of Matthew chapter 6 verses 14-15. In this message, this is how it goes. For if you forgive other people when they sin against you, your heavenly Father will also forgive you. But if you do not forgive others their sins, your Father will not forgive your sins. So the forgiveness is one of the important, because when we come to our teachings, we know Dhammo Haverakti Dhammachari. So Dhamma protects those who practice it faithfully. The same those who practice it faithfully. The same principle. So another thing is, the one time Jesus mentioned, you have to carry your own cross. So be ready for that. So there is no one to carry your cross. So basically that our principle is that the mind is the forerunner. So our intention is create our future. And one of the important thing that everybody need to remember, that's Eckhart Tolle one that in his book Power of Now mentioned it very beautifully, that there is a God, of course, but when you meet the God, you always have to be in the present. You will never meet the God related to past or the future. Being in the present, bring the transformation to yourself. So that is a very important, powerful message, because according to the Buddha's teaching, and that is the very fundamental core essence of the teachings. And at the same time, we don't need to kind of like look and see what are the similarities or how it's going to be same like, but no, we keep it as a separate when it comes to the very deeper philosophical understanding. But when it comes to ordinary level, as ordinary human being, how we can get out of this conventional suffering and how we can do best for ourselves and for others, it's all belong to our own hands. So in that way, I think when it comes to Christmas time period, people gather, everybody share themselves and whatever they have, and they have the joy, and they celebrate it with the family members. That is very necessary, because most of time we see that little by little, especially after the COVID, we lose this human qualities, especially this gathering as ordinary people and having the real conversations. Because now this young generation, they can't have kind of like the real person-to-person conversation. Slowly losing is, and they are more depending on emojis, kind of like they try to express their deeper sadness, worry, happy through the emojis. But when they come to express their sadness or the worry or try to have a real conversation, sometimes they can't express their idea because they're slowly losing that human qualities. So I think this is a time period with this festival time, with this new year, and again we come back to this our conventional level of fundamental qualities as human beings, how we can develop our life in this conventional level. So there was a little boy, and in his neighborhood, he going here and there, and he saw there was a temple, and all other the people put lights during this Christmas time, but in this little temple there was no that kind of decorations. And he came and asked this monk's name called Koji, and asked, Bante, why you don't put lights? and you don't celebrate Christmas. And this Bante Koji invite him, come inside and make little tea and give some sweet and had a friendly conversation, and then told, of course, we appreciate that or other everybody whatever they practice, and then this little boy asked, why you don't put lights? Then this Bante Koji told, no, we always put the lights on. And where? I can't see. No, it's in our heart. Our light is kindness and compassion to everybody. And when people have the sadness, worry, disappointment, it's kind of like they have the darkness. So at that time, we are available for anybody. And this little boy thought, oh, I can see that light because you have so much compassion. So like that, and when it comes to us, as ordinary human being, I always mention this is our time. And how we can do and what we can contribute to our human existence, what we can add to this journey of human life. And that's going to give the meaning for the whatever the religion we practice. So that is what I want to mention. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much, Venerable Shanta Sobhana, even from giving references from the Bible about the forgiveness. And I think that's the very important teaching that we all can practice and apply into our life, no matter who we are. It's a very beautiful teaching. I know you have more to share, so just keep your thoughts for the time being, and later on, we might have more time to discuss about more stuff. So I know I'm being mindful of Bhante Rahula's signing off at 7 p.m., but there are two things that I would like to ask from Bhante Rahula. I think there is one person who is watching live on YouTube, Adrian. Adrian is saying, hi, I personally believe religions are important, but they are concepts. So they are concepts, but do concepts have any purpose, any function for human beings? Bhante Rahula.
Well, our mind basically functions in concepts. When we were a young child and just coming out of the womb, the first several months, there was no much really concepts in the mind. It saw images and heard sounds and things like this, but it didn't really know what they meant, or no conceptual thinking really formed in the mind yet. It only after some months when it learned more language and then started developing its ability to move and more interaction, then it started to develop concepts about good and bad, or beauty and ugly and pleasure and pain. And then these concepts and ideas about the world, or what to believe, what not to believe, as the children grew up and conditioned by schools, media, and so on. So and if those concepts are wrong, like let's say the right view. Buddha said if the view is wrong, that means the view of the world, the idea about what is the nature of the mind, the nature of suffering, the nature of our actions, and so on. If your view is such that it doesn't matter what you do, just eat, drink, and be merry, and there's no point in observing precepts because there's going to be no reward or so on. If that's your view, if it's your concept, then your thoughts are going to be wrong, your speech will be wrong, your actions will be wrong, your mindfulness, concentration, and wisdom will be wrong. So, having the right view, which are concepts about, there is mother, father, all the things that were mentioned, relative concepts. Mm-hmm. But they have their meaning and have place. But in the end, we have to let go of all those precepts, or those concepts, mm-hmm. thinking, in order to get beyond those concepts, which has their limitations too, to go beyond, the past, the future, pleasure and pain, self and others, to experience the total liberation of the mind. So the concepts have their place, but they should be wholesome concepts that we can follow as guidelines, like the Noble Eightfold Path, but they lead to eventually transcending all concepts altogether.
So here's another question asked by Cindy. I think Cindy is from Malaysia. Hi Bante, what's your advice if my circle of Christian friends, always compare both religion in negative perspective?
Well, if they're comparing the religions in negative perspective, that's because they're conditioned that way to think like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have to, as you mentioned already before, we have to think about the positive similarities that different religions have and not dwell on the negative parts, and so on. Because, people are going to cling to their views, and, animosity breeds more animosity. And when you choose other religions of this or that, or being inferior, naturally that's going to provoke negative reactions into them. And so, to speak about the positive qualities.
Yeah. And another person, Ashley from Ottawa, Canada, is asking, can we get a timeline when Buddha, Jesus spoke?
A timeline?
This is not a history class, but we know that Buddha was born in the 6th century BCE, 600 years before Christ.
Yes.
So there's a 600 years apart from.
Yeah, basically that's a timeline.
Yes.
But as we all know, Dhamma is timeless.
Yeah.
Christian teachings, the birth of Jesus, and being born at a certain time is very important because it's based on that person is the savior. But the Buddha didn't claim to be like that.
Mm-hmm.
Buddha just rediscovered the eternal truth that's in every being. And so even if the Buddha didn't exist, if the Dhamma is there, it still works.
Mm.
Even if it's proved later in 100 years the Buddha never existed, it wouldn't matter because the Dhamma is tried and true and tested, and we can experience from that. So it's not ultimately that much based on geocentric, this earth, or anthropocentric, based on a certain person. The Dhamma is the Sanatana Dhamma, the eternal truths which the Buddha simply rediscovered.
And Ashley says, awesome, thank you so much. That's great. Thank you, Bante. So I see Venerable Ananda Kalabovila from Cambridge, Ontario, Canada. Raised his hand. Venerable Ananda, I know I also have seen before you came to Wattle region, actually, I used to be part of those interfaith programs. But now since you're there, and I don't have to worry about going there, I have seen you getting involved with interfaith programs. So what's in your mind, Venerable Ananda?
Greetings, Venerable Bantes. I think it's very nice that our friend Cindy asked that question. People are fixated on the negative aspects, whereas there are so many positive aspects that we could take. So the interfaith program, now I have been very interfaith from the beginning of my life because I went to a Christian school in the beginning until grade 4. So I went to classes and do all the rituals. I've been the Father Joseph in the place on Christmas. So I've been brought up with a very Christian background as well, although my family was Buddhist. So then you understand the cultures of different religions, and then so there's a difference between if a person wants to be a very religious person who's only confined to his or her religion, or a person would want to be a spiritual person. Now he's open to learn from anything which is available. So people, when they become into these silos, because they haven't explored other areas, they tend to stick into that, but a person who's more open-minded, more religious can absorb good things from all over. And there's a beautiful sutta called Gadi Upama Sutta, where Buddha says that if a cow is just contained in a silo, he's no good. I'm taking it out of context, but if you explore more, you would come across good things in your life. So the same way, I think if we have an open mind about all these religions, we would find beautiful things and we can absorb all the good things. And again, to understand Buddhism, you need quite a bit of non-Buddhist understanding, because Buddha is replying to certain questions. So to understand the solution, you need to understand the question. So some of the questions come from other religions, like one day Rahul mentioned the Brahmajala Sutta, where there's a lot of mentioning of other doctrines and other ideologies. So then the interfaith program, what I really like about is that I get a ride every day when I go to these meetings, and I go with different people, with the Baha'is, with the Jews. So I have a working at Mennonites. I have an understanding of what their religion is from their first-hand perspective. And more understanding you have with people, it reduces that friction you have with other people. You see so many similarities. Now, I was very amazed to hear the similarities of Mennonites and the practice of Buddhism. It's the last thing you would expect, Mennonites and Buddhism, but my friend calls him a Menno-Buddhist. He calls himself a Menno-Buddhist because the practices are very similar. If you remove the cover of the book, certain practices are very similar. Again, having said that, all religions has different nuances, different philosophies. Having said that, we can also get a lot of good things. So if we focus on the negative side, we will only see the negative, but if we focus on the positive side, we will see great positive things. In fact, we should reinforce our spiritual journey. And now, one thing I learned associating these friends about Christmas is that some churches, like the Orthodox Church, they do not believe that 25th December is the Christmas day. They believe 7th January is the Christmas day. And some factions like Jehovah's Witness, they completely deny that Jesus was born at all on a Christmas day. It happened much earlier, towards mid-year. Now, we know that there's winter solstice and there was a pagan festival. I also have a pagan friend. They celebrate the Yuli festival and Saturnalia festival. So, I think historically, pagan festival Yule became Christmas with the adoption of Christianity to the Roman Empire. And then now so it was about Jesus for some time, but now the Christmas is not about Jesus, it's about Santa and Best Buy, all the marketing that the companies do. More interesting thing is not whether there's a Santa, not whether there's all this marketing and emails that we get for different Christmas presents. The more important thing is that people get together on one day and celebrate that day with their families, and then go to the Christmas Eve Mass on 24th and take few hours to reflect on what has happened in the year and the positive messages which has happened. So with that, I happened to go to a 24th Mass at a Sai Center in Toronto Sai Center on the 24th, and there was this beautiful sermon a Christian brother did that came from the Gospel of John. Chapter 8, 1 to 11, which said the forgiveness of Jesus. Bhante Shanstoban was talking about forgiveness, and I think it's wonderful. I can add to that forgiveness part. I'm sure that most of you have heard this story. One day there was a woman who was caught by some people for adultery. So she was about to be stoned now. But the people wanted to bring that woman to Jesus, when Jesus lived at a mountain. Because in Jesus' preaching, there was the Mosaic law, where Moses, the 10 Commandments say adultery is wrong, and this is the punishment for adultery. So they wanted to sort of check Jesus also, what would Jesus' response be to adultery? And they took this woman and they were about to stone this woman. And then Jesus said, Jesus actually wrote on the ground without even without telling it, if someone hasn't sinned before, that person may cast the first stone or throw the first stone at this lady. So people start reading it, and slowly, one by one, people dispersed. They went away. And then Jesus, the final words are the most important thing. Jesus said, sister, even I don't condemn you. Go and live a non-sinful life. So I think that's a beautiful message of how you can truly be forgiving. And what I see is often that when people, so it's a beautiful message coming from from the New Testament. If we apply to our modern day, people find their religions, people find their religious practices, and let's say Panchasila, the five precepts. So one would start observing the five precepts, and then he would stick to that, and then he would develop this ego, thinking that I am the one who's doing the right thing, and all the other people who are doing not sticking to five precepts are bad people. So if you develop that ego, if from a simple five precepts to even being a vegetarian, you're a vegetarian, and after some time, people who are not vegetarian, you see them as monsters, cruel people. And I have seen some people who are working on different causes like saving animals, saving dogs, saving the forest. They would go to the extent of killing another person to save an animal. So it beats the whole purpose. You're trying to do something good while five precepts are really good. The ego, which is developed thinking that you are a better person because of this, makes you a person of judging and non-forgiving. So I think if we can understand that message from Bible, which is very relevant to Buddhism as well. Buddha was all about being compassionate and he was very non-judgmental. When Achara Kisagotami walked in, like with their crazy faces naked, Buddha did not judge them. Buddha asked, give that woman a robe and gave her practical lessons of life. So I think one of the most beautiful teachings that we can get from Jesus's life period is his beautiful message of peace, which is a very powerful tool. Now, when people want to wage into wars, they use evil to fight evil, but Jesus used love to fight evil, which is a very powerful tool. Like Mahatma Gandhi, the whole tool of non-violence. Now, it might look like he's not strong enough, but it's actually a much more stronger tool than being violent. So I think that's a very beautiful message and very in accordance with Buddhism. So the moment you start looking at things, whether how it add value to my life, you simply ignore all the negative perspectives of different ideologies, but you absorb all the good positive things. Like there's a very famous saying in Sanskrit where a swan would remove milk from the water and only get the milk. So
yeah, wonderful, amazing. I knew you. Actually, I heard from some of our friends who also met you in Toronto Water region. They are highly talking about you. I'm very happy to see a very active monk, young monk in that region, getting involved and representing Buddhism, Buddhist community in this interfaith dialogues. So they keep up your great work. And I see next, of course, now I also want to acknowledge Bante Jayasara is here from New Jersey. Later on, I want to hear from you. But, and I know Bante Subodh also raised his hand. He wanted to share his view, but I see Venerable Trudel raising his hand. So what's in your mind, Venerable Trudel? I know you have been preparing for this.
Thank you for having me. Salutations. Merry Christmas to all of the most venerables here today. Bless all of you. And I think the causes and conditions of the universe, God, Buddha, Dhamma, has made it so that all of us got here today, living this long in longevity, peace, and prosperity, and the health to expound the good words for all of the people across the world. So yes, I got the message at 1 o'clock today, and since then I've been grabbing Bibles. 50 years old here at my dad's office. This one is huge, it is humongous. So I got a couple of quotes for everyone here. It's a treat for everyone. We all know that the Christianity world is huge. The numbers in the billions following the teachings of Christ. So they far supersede followers in Buddhism. And in modern day, it is very much necessary to merge the two together to make sense of our world. in this very complex world. The mind, the chitta, has been developing and advancing at such a rate that we've been able to outsmart the teachings. Well, we have that lawyer in our head that thinks that we know it, and therefore difficult to attain peace, the unprecedented quality of peace of mind. I find it calming, soothing, necessary, and clinical benefits to merge the two teachings together. As everyone know or may not know, that I was formerly Catholic at a very young age, as far as I can remember, I think 7 years old. I was baptized when I was perhaps 9 years old. And I went to church yesterday to attend Mass, to celebrate Christmas with all of the parishioners that is there. So Jesus does hold a very special, unique place in my heart. And the structure of the Catholic Church, I applaud. Same thing with the Theravadan order. It's a very good structure to follow, very methodical, very on point, hierarchical, and it is very much needed to guide anyone within the spiritual path. Buddhism and Christianity is necessary because to ensure, first and foremost, the gift of safety in the world. If we do not have the 10 commandments, if we do not have the 10 precepts, and in Buddhism, we have latitude to say, well, if you can't keep 10, that's okay. You can cut it in half. you could just keep the 5 basic one. It's easier. It's more practical. And for the elite, the super muscle Buddhist, you all can move to the 8th precept and the 10th precept. So we got to laugh, right? When it comes to these things, because it is quite serious. And it is serious that thousands of laws can be passed with legislative intent, with the parliaments and Congress and the legislature, both local, state, and federal government. But if you don't keep the precept in conjunction and parallel to the commandments, nothing matters. Nothing matters. The question for all of you Christians out there, and the question for all of you Buddhists out there is, how many precepts have you kept lately? How many commandments have you kept lately? And if you were to tell me no, none, and there's a lot of that, keep the holy Sabbath day would be one of them, then I would ask you, then how have you been able to achieve long-lasting peace this whole time? So we see that the gift of safety is paramount, perennial to that. And you can't use the rosary, you can't meditate if you don't keep the precept. Just think about it, right? How could you meditate on the laws of God? How can you meditate on the Four Noble Truths or even meditate on the 5 precepts if you have drama ongoing in your life? If you don't forgive your neighbors, if you don't forgive and never tired of asking for forgiveness, how could you sit there and be happy with yourself? Because all of those defilements will come back. The devil will come back. The psychological Mara will come back and hunt you down in those moments because you have been harboring hatred and resentment all this time. And so there's a lot to reflect about, right? And when you make this comparison and contrast, it's profound. It is meant for you to awaken your heart and quite fairly quickly and surrender. One of the things in Christianity is to surrender to God. And in Buddhism, I would assert our practice is to just give up, just because we hang on to the atta, the sense of me, my, and I. I am right. No, my philosophy is right. Jesus is wrong. Gautama Buddha is wrong. What do they know about suffering? No, what do you know about suffering? And so surrendering is one of the easiest thing to do. Is just put your hands up. Just like, I don't know anything. I may know Tom, but perhaps I don't know Jack. You may know Jack, but you may not know Tom. So surrendering, I find in the Christianity world very profound. And in AA, Alcoholic Anonymous, a lot of people are addicted to alcohol. That's one of the first things, right? It's to just give up, because they know, whoever wrote the AA, they know that you've been battling with yourself and the lawyer in your head, and it's so much easier to touch intoxicating substance than to read the Bible. So the first one that I have for everyone here is Dhammapada number 1. No, oh no, I'm sorry, 19. That's a lot of notes here. 19. Those who recite many scriptures but fail to practice their teachings are like a cowherd counting another's cow. They do not share in the joys of the spiritual life. Number 20. But those who follow few scripture yet practice their teaching, overcoming all lust, hatred, and delusion, live with a pure mind in the highest wisdom. They stand without external support and share in the joys of the spiritual life. The Gospel of Jesus, James 1, 22. Be also doers of the word, not hearers only, deceiving yourselves, your own selves. 23. For if any hearer of the word and not a doer, he is like a man beholding his natural face in a glass. Continuing, Jesus says in John 11:26, everyone who lives and believes in me will never die. Buddha says, those who have sufficient faith in me, sufficient love for me, are all headed for heaven and beyond. Majjhima Nikaya 22:47 emphasizes faith. When we talk about these two, a lot of faith in the Lord, faith in the Buddha, in Pali, sattha. And sometimes we are lost in life and we should just give it up and have faith in our great lords of Christ to show us the way to heaven. Where is heaven? Heaven is here. Heaven is to be realized in the here and now. Nibbana is in the here and now, right? How do you all see your world right here and now? Is it gloomy? Is it dark? Is it bad? There's always shooting. There's mass shooting. There's terrorists. There's ISIS. There's wars and stuff like that. Or we can focus to direct our mind. A mind is well tamed. That there's beauty in the world. I mean, God bless this tree that is here for me to meditate. And all of the water that comes into this tree coming to fruition to give shade for me to sit here and buy a couple of minutes of Nibbanic experience at this lake. So therefore, when we put our faith in the Pali Canon and our faith in the Bible, it helps to direct our mind towards heaven, to be realized in the here, now, in the present. If you wish to be perfect, Jesus said, if you wish to be perfect, go sell all of your possessions and give the money to the poor, and you will have treasure in heaven. Matthew 19:21. Buddha says, the avaricious do not go to heaven. The foolish do not extol charity. The wise one, however, rejoicing in charity, becomes thereby happy in the beyond. Dhammapada 13:11. It's Jesus' birthday. How are all of you getting presents if it's Jesus' birthday, not your birthday? Have you ever thought about that? All of my children out there, all of my adolescents and teenagers out there, it's like, it's Jesus' birthday, it's not your birthday. Why are you getting presents? Because your parents see Jesus in you. Your parents saw Buddha in you, your Buddha nature. So therefore, you have to be good. What does it mean to receive this present? It means that keep the 10 commandments, keep the precepts. Don't disappoint God. Don't hurt God. Do you think that the nail on his cross is painful? It is more painful when you hurt God and you do not honor your father and your mother. So I find that very profound, what I just read so far about if you wish to be perfect, then sell all of your possessions. Here in the West, we just gather everything, don't we? We have more Rolls Royce, BMW, Mercedes, diamond, D-color, flawless diamonds. and we don't know how to give more and take less. The type of joy that any priest would agree with me, archbishop, cardinals, venerable, most venerables, we have an patriarch in Buddhism would agree that the type of heaven and the type of perfection and happiness lies in giving, because when you give, you no longer hang on to anything. When you don't hang on to money anymore, it's like, who cares? People care so much about the concept of money and possession. Me, my, and I, my money, my retirement, my life. And they hang on to this thing thinking that it is secure, that it will last and it will be there. And you think you can enjoy retirement, this lump sum of money, when you get there, and for how long, until things change. The three marks of existence: impermanence, change, and rarely are they under your control. Just look at this. Every year, Social Security Administration here gives you more money to adjust to the cost of living. What is the point of hanging on to certain things? Yes, basic needs to be met. But once your basic needs to be met, all of us venerables, cardinals, bishops, encourage all of you to give more and take less. It's the fastest way to realize Nibbana. It's the fastest way to realize Jesus. It's the fastest way to be closer to God, and it's the fastest way to feel that you are there with the teachings, because you have let everything go. Someone give me $5 right now. How easy is that, and how difficult is that lies within your own examination, but I can buy McDonald's for this $5. I can get another gallon of gas for this $1. But how would you know? Kalamasuta. Go ahead. Prove me wrong. Anyone can prove me wrong. Go out and give $5 to a stranger and go home and sleep tonight, and realize that, what do you think he did with that $5, and how joyful and happy it made him. And you can rejoice in this memory forever, as long as you live. And as you die, we all question, we die, where we're going to go, what's going to happen. Well, all your good deeds going to go with you, not the U-Haul behind your hearse, but all the good deeds you've done. Our great master, the Dalai Lama, says, live a good life. And if you live a good life, you can relive it again when you are older. Then I think the last one is going to be about living. Did it run away? The heart, let us live. Yes, with bless.
It seems
Okay.
you have actually given us a lot of references to the Buddhist texts and the Bible. I said these are amazing teachings. That it's all about the practice, isn't it?
Yes.
If you don't practice, then you get nowhere.
Yes. So I like to retire so other venerables can have contributions. Thank you. And God bless all of you, and all of us rejoice in the teachings. Yes.
No, thank you so much. Actually, thank you so much for giving us these references to these similarities found in the Buddha's teachings and Christ's teachings. So next we see Bhante Subodha from New York City raising his hand. Bhante Subodha, what's in your mind?
Thank you, Bhante, and Merry Christmas to all bhikkhus and our friends of lay people. So it's very happy to share the Buddhist view of other religions. So that's a good topic to talk on these days. So it's very interesting to learn what Buddhist view of other religions. So we can see Buddha have visited in his time into many other religious monasteries. Not only one time. When we read the suttas, we can see Buddha go to individually to meet other religious leaders. So he go to them and talk to them and discuss with them. So Buddha tried to share his knowledge with others, and then they ask and to answer to their questions. we can see so many other religious leaders, followers, came to Buddha to argue with his teaching. So, and Buddha had a very friendly conversation with them and answering to them. We can see there's a whole Kutuhala Sala. We can see on the suttas, there's suttas in that by name Kutuhala Sala. That's the whole curiosity. That's the whole confusion. They are the things they are talking about, confusion things. They are talking and to try to find out the solution and answer to those curiosity things. And they talk about other religions, but they never had fight. That's what we have to learn in the past, in the history. And they had so many arguments, but they never had fight and kill each other in the entire history. We never see especially in the Asian religions. For example, and Buddhists and Hindus had an argument lately after Buddha's passing away. So, but we didn't have to fight each other. Even in the Buddhism, we had so many arguments. Buddhism, Mahayana Buddhism, Theravada Buddhism, Vajrayana Buddhism, and we wrote many books about that differences. But they never had a fight and kill each other. So lately, we can see some other religions when they rise and when they're spreading, and that peaceful conversation method, that friendly relationship each other, and instead of sharing the knowledge, wisdom of each other, and they started completely criticize others, act against to other beliefs, other concepts, and they never respect to their concept, their beliefs, their goals, whatever the other religious teachings, and we can see they do not have patience enough to see and accept and respect to other religions. Even in Buddhism, we have this problem right now. So we can see in Sri Lanka, there's a lady talk about the Siddhartha, and they put her in jail. So there are no freedom now to talk about religions. But actually, according to my personal idea, she didn't say anything wrong, and she did. If you heard her story from the beginning to end, so she talked about something, a funny story, what the people talk about him in those days. So then Buddhist people wasn't having enough patience to accept that. Then they, then what's these kind of things make, and then we learn and we develop not to accept the criticizing, arguing, questioning about religions, whatever we believe. So that in Buddhism we had that. So Buddha got so many criticized when he woke, and very badly they criticized Buddha to his face, and Buddha didn't ask for anything, any minister to act against to them. And Buddha had a good patience and talked nicely, friendly, and had a good conversation. That's what we have to learn. That's what, if we don't have learned that kind of things, the war in the world, we can see all the ways, always. So we can see the world right now going on in many different countries. It's based on nations, if not, it's based on religion. They kill thousand people each other. The real reason is religion, if not the race. So I think in Buddhism, the Buddhist view of other religions is we have to respect their belief, no matter whatever they believe. For example, who believe to God and hope to go to heaven, and they believe God and they go to heaven. There's no problem with that. But the Buddhist people believe in Buddhism, practicing Eight Noble Path, attain to Nibbana, That's good. Then they attend to Nibbana, they go to Nibbana, that's fine. There are no problem with that. So whoever is the religions believe and teach, whoever people to believe and follow, and then they
Merry
respect
Christmas to all of
and
you
they
TikTokers.
have devotion unto it, and they love for their religions, their teachers, and the things, and then we respect for that no matter whatever it is. And we encourage them, we support them, then our friendship, our conversation, sharing knowledge or whatever it is, and we do it friendly. But no, we argue the questions, whatever is argument, it comes. But we're not going following and criticizing any religions. We can see in right now, the last years we saw, there are many, at least burning a book of religion. They got a quarrel, fight, killing, attack, because they burn or they burn or did something bad things to their religious book. So that's the Buddhist view on this is what we have to learn. So religion is not on a book. Then all the time when they burn a book, then we have to fight, we have to kill. Then Buddhist view, Buddhism, no matter whatever I heard that Ajahn Brahm said that if someone, they have the Tipitaka put into the toilet and flush it, and it doesn't make any sense, so it's not hurt him anymore to his feelings, because he understood Buddhism is not on the book, and that's what Buddha said. Now now our perspective, our concept, our ideas depends merely on our beliefs or our devotion, not the knowledge or wisdom or something. It's not based on wisdom and knowledge. It's completely based on devotion. That's why people having trouble in the world. So the interfaith activities, we are participating many times in the interfaith activities in New York City. So we're sharing each religion's knowledge, each other. So we respect their views, their knowledge, their ideas, their teachings, and we're sharing with them and we listen to them. And that's good. That's what we have to do. So not we do anything physical or any harmful action, whatever criticize we get. We cannot act against to them because of merely on our faith. So we have to develop the patience. We learn in Christian, we learn patience. How much? If someone hit to your right, what's the call? Right? Yeah, right side on your face, and then turn your left side into give another shot. Yeah. So you can't do anything against to that. You know what Buddhism taught about the same thing that we learn. So many religions have the similarity, but all the religions not similar. All the religions is different each other. Even Buddhism have many different traditions. Even Christian have many different traditions. Muslim have many different traditions each other. They all do. But we respect each other. And we practice the good teachings come through that their religions. So that's what my idea is, the learning the good teaching and keep practicing and respecting each other, not killing or do any harmful action, merely depend on your belief.
Yeah, thank you, Matis, for bringing that aspect of the practice of religion. And I think it's like, how we say nowadays, we agree to disagree. So the conversation has to be based on this mutual understanding, mutual respect. And there's no harm in discussing various faiths but based on respect and understanding. I think this is what Buddha did. This is what we see in the conversation in the various sutras. Buddha going visiting other places of worship and having friendly conversations. And I said, thank you so much for bringing that aspect of the teachings today. And I know Guy Sarah from New Jersey. You did not raise your hand, but we would like to hear from you, Venerable Jai Sarah. At least say Merry Christmas to us and our friends. What's in your mind, Venerable Jai Sarah?
Hello, Bhantes in the Mahasangha. So yeah, I came late because I was actually celebrating Christmas with my family.
Oh wow, that's nice.
So they had to, yeah. So just as Venerable Tridao said, I also was raised Catholic. I went to Catholic school my whole life. I was an altar boy for most of my youth. I wore robes, even when I was young, although my robes were white. Now I wear different color robes. But I think what one important point, Bhante Subodha just mentioned this, is that in the West, among spiritual circles, there's this real tendency to kind of say like all religions lead to the same thing, or they're all, part of the same path. And I think it's actually very important to realize that this is actually not true. And I think thinking that way kind of degrades the diversity of paths that humanity has practiced in religion throughout life. But one thing I think that is important, and other Bhantes have mentioned this, is finding actually what's similar. And I wanted to read, I don't know, did anybody read anything from Ajahn Chah? I don't think so.
No.
Okay, so one of the things that I found, and this is in my early days of becoming a Buddhist, I found this story of what Ajahn Chah, who's a very famous Thai monk, said. This is the teacher of Ajahn Brahm, actually. So, by the way, Ajahn Brahm said that if the Tipitaka went down the toilet, he would call a plumber. That's what he said. But anyway, so I'm going to read this. So it says, it was Christmas and the foreign monks. So this is in Thailand, and it's talking about Western monks, so American and European monks. It was Christmas and the foreign monks had decided to celebrate it. They invited some lay people as well as Ajahn Chah to join them. The lay people were generally upset and skeptical. Why, they asked, were Buddhists celebrating Christmas? Ajahn Chah then gave a talk on religion in which he said, as far as I understand, Christianity teaches people to do good and to avoid evil, just as Buddhism does. So what is the problem? However, if people are upset by the idea of celebrating Christmas, that can be easily remedied. We won't call it Christmas, let's call it Christ Buddhamas. Anything that inspires us to see what is true and to do what is good is proper practice. You may call it whatever name you like. And I really like this story because what Ajahn is doing here is pointing us towards what is similar. My major in college was anthropology, and throughout my life, I've done a study of many different world religions, which is one of the reasons why when I decided to become religious, it was Buddhism for me, because I had studied many different religions. And one of the things that all religions have in common is sila. Every religion that I've studied has in common trying to, as I just said here, doing what is good, right? Acting in good, skillful ways. And I think that's where religions can come together. I was ordained and I lived with Bhante Gunaratana in West Virginia. And when I started being invited to teach, I was invited to the other side of West Virginia, to the capital. And I was invited to teach at this little yoga studio. And there's a bunch of people there. And there's this one woman who could tell she dragged her husband to hear this monk speak in the yoga studio. And I was talking about metta. And this guy, afterwards when we were doing the Q&A, he spoke up and he says, I'm kind of like dumbfounded because I had just gone to church and the minister gave his sermon that's saying just exactly what you're saying.
Oh, wow.
And I said, you could tell that there was this enlightenment, obviously something awoke in him that, he was dragged to hear this monk speak. And then the monk is saying basically the same thing as his pastor is saying. And that's where people can come together.
Yeah.
I think one of the stories in the suttas, one of the suttas that to me shows that the Buddha is not against other traditions and I don't know exactly which sutta it is, but he's talking to the one gentleman, and then the gentleman says, I'm going to stop, I'm going to become a Buddhist now, I'm going to follow the Buddha, and I'm going to stop donating to the other sects. And the Buddha says, no, continue to donate to them. Right? That's quite a...
The Upali Sutta in the Majjhima Nikaya.
Yeah, that's quite profound. Yeah. Right? The Buddha says, no, continue to donate to them. Yeah. Right? So it's almost like a wider understanding that encouraging goodness, even if they're not, following the Buddha, encouraging goodness and people doing good things across the society is a good thing.
Yeah. Wow, that is amazing. That is amazing. Thank you so much, Venerable Jayasara, for bringing this aspect of the religious practice. And I think we all know, since we are living in the 21st century, we all are exposed to different cultures, different religious practices, and of course, what we are doing, actually, as Ajahn Chah said, even today, by doing this discussion, is Christ Buddha celebration that we are doing together. And that's why I wanted to title today's discussion as Christmas, how Buddhists view on other religions. And from my own experience, I have been invited to different churches across North America, and there are Christian ministers and the fathers actually who are very interested in Buddhist teachings, and I have met some Christian ministers. They have personally told me they have become better Christians through the practice of Buddhist teachings and meditations, so they call themselves, the Christian Buddhists or Buddhist Christians. And that's why today we have a new terms, Chrisbos and Jubos, Jewish Buddhists, Christian Buddhists. Even we go to local churches. For me, I have been doing soup kitchens since 1995, and I always take all our youth members to the Good Shepherd Center. That's where the homeless people come for meals, and I made sure to provide meals. And our friends, they are very pleased to have us. When we go there, these Catholic fathers, Christian ministers, they just embrace us with so much love. I think this act of giving and the act of kindness brings us together. Now imagine we all continue to uphold these teachings and see the similarities rather than seeing the differences. We would have a better place and to live in on earth without fighting, without any violence. And today I'm very happy to see many people watching this discussion from different countries, even Australia. They always says thank you, but today I'm able to join this discussion. this morning from Australia. I don't know other people, they did not mention the countries they are joining from, but it's amazing to see people watching this discussion, joining this discussion, Australia, New Zealand, Malaysia, America, here in Canada. So I think we monks, have done amazing job bringing people to one platform. This is the power of Dhamma. And, since we have come to the end of the conventional year 2023, and today is the 70th, the 70th, the bi-weekly discussion we had. And I feel very happy and I feel very joyful to see all of you. I think our devotees, our friends, the people around the world are really admiring this. And when monks come to one frame, they see different colors, different cities. This is what we call Sukha Sangasa Samagi, unity of the Sangha members is the real joy, real happiness. So today I feel very happy for all of you. And of course, I'm determined to continue to conduct this bi-weekly discussion even the coming year. And I'm hoping to have your presence because all of you are very educated, very experienced. You're dealing with people and you have a lot of stories. And by telling your stories and by sharing your wisdom, you're inspiring people. You're putting the people into the right direction. And I think we are doing this with a heart full of compassion for all sentient beings because we want to see people living a happy and peaceful life. So there's also a person called Edward who really admired Venerable Trudeau's a comparison of the Buddha Sutras and the Bible, and I see this is amazing. So all of you told powerful stories, and people are really admiring your insights. So, I normally invite someone to recite the Ovada Patimokkha verses, but today no one is here. But I would like to recite the Ovada Patimokkha verses. We can do it together. Sabba papassa akaranang kusalassa upasampada sacitta pariyodapanang etang buddhana sasanang Kante paramang tapotitika nibbanang paramang vadanti buddha nahi pabbajito parupaghati samano hoti parang vihethayanto Anupavato anupaghato patimokkhe cha sangvaro mattanyuta cha bhattasmin pantang cha sayanasanang adhicitte cha ayoga Etang buddhana sasanam. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. So thank you so much for your contribution. I'm wishing all of you nothing
Please
but
join me
all
on
happiness
YouTube.
by the grace,
Thank you all for joining
by the grace
on
and power of the
TikTok.
Buddha, Dhamma, the Sangha. May you all venerable Bhantes and our devotees be well, happy and peaceful. May Devas, celestial beings, continue to protect and guard all of you with the divine blessings for your health and safety. May all blessings be with you. May all the blessings of the Noble Triple Gem continue to be with all of you throughout your life for all happiness and peace. Sabbe Satta Bhavantu Sukhitatta. May all sentient beings be well, happy and peaceful. So with this in mind, I would like to wish you all Happy New Year and happy holidays and Merry Christmas. And I'm looking forward to seeing all in 2 weeks' time in the new year. Until then, all of you stay well. Be well.
Thank you.
Bye. Okay.
Thank you all for joining. Please join me on YouTube. I have to go now. My students are inviting me for Christmas dinner. I may appear again because they're going to ask a bunch of questions. I'll go live again. Thank you so much for being wonderful listeners. Merry Christmas to all of you.